Hey Alex, welcome to the Sales Talk podcast series.
Hi, Gopi. Hi, Gopi.
Yo,
How are you
so
doing?
I'm good. How are you?
Great. Yeah, very happy to be part of this great podcast. So I'm looking forward to giving you a little bit of insight around our enterprise sales jobs.
Cause yeah, super nice to have you. And before we get started with the podcast, I would like to know a bit about yourself and your background. So
Mhm.
which would be awesome for the people who are listening and also watching the podcast.
Absolutely. Yes, Alex. I'm now working around 5, 6 years in enterprise sales, and probably as a lot of my colleagues in enterprise sales, I've started in Dublin, where I found my very first station of doing cold calls for Oracle back in the day. And I thought it was fascinating to identify what actually how complex sales can be. So I found a setup at Oracle where you would only really start to engage with the customers, right? And this is what you would assume as when you're looking at sales, that this is one of the parts, but actually what's the whole steps and the methodologies, the processes behind is very interesting, and what kept me going, right, on a daily basis, to keep doing the jobs, and then to kind of as well develop and find motivation of doing it. So I've done that for a year at Oracle, and then got the chance to also move on and not only knowing about the full sales cycle and what that actually means, but also being responsible for it. So I did that for 2 years at Oracle, being responsible for new customers, being also responsible for not only new customers, but also for an install base customers and the complexity behind that. It's a complete different, let's say, work and prioritization that you'll have to do. So having learned that, I moved on from Oracle to Salesforce. Also a very, let's say, in size, very similar company. Also by the time then, being one of the major software providers in the industry. I've also learned more about how, established a sales organization can be, and how well organized, well structured, and how to use that, right? How to use all of your tools, all of the people that help you to identify new opportunities, close deal. And after that, after 2 years, no, after not 2 years, two stations at larger software corporations, I wanted to see the German landscape of software, right? Going a little bit more local, and I've got the opportunity to work now for German software vendors, which are in the methodologies and the processes very similar, but just in a different talk track and different emotions that you try to also use during a sales process that is different. But that all gave me a great um, learning path, first of all, right? To see different setups, to see different approaches to go about the DACH market, which you will also probably hear from different countries and different geographies, that the DACH market is very unique in their software evaluation process. But yeah, very happy to do what I'm doing, and very honored to be able to get an insight on such great companies. So yeah, I
Yep.
hope I can support a few of my colleagues or whoever is listening to this podcast. So um, and they take some value out of this.
For sure. I think
Or,
wonderful.
or great stories, if that's what it takes, right? Sometimes it's actually great stories as well that make up the job. It's a very diverse day to day, and I really like that about it.
I think that's more better, I would say. So through
Yeah,
storytelling and more stories to bring
yeah,
in, more effective and impactful it is going to be. So
Yeah.
anyway, Alex, so I think you rightly pointed out, and that today's topic is going to be about enterprise sales, especially in the SaaS space. So I want to start this podcast by asking you what differentiates enterprise SaaS sales with the smaller deals, right? Let's just say, uh, I don't know, it could be like smaller deals from like a startup company, uh, so on
Yeah.
and so forth. So yeah, maybe I want to start with that.
Yeah, absolutely. And I think also within the name of enterprise deals, and everybody working in SaaS will know what that means. It's well, enterprise and SMBs or medium-sized companies. The differentiator is obviously the size of the company, and with size and with, let's say, more budget, more potential comes also the complexity, right? That's within smaller companies, obviously due to the size or due to responsibilities, there is less people that need to approve, need to be convinced that the new solution that you're trying to position there is helpful. So that's a major difference, the complexity of the whole process behind it, the number of departments, number of people that want to have a vote into what sort of software is going to be purchased. And I think with especially with SaaS, you will run into at some point you will need to involve IT as well, right? If you're talking about SaaS, I think this can be also software that is not necessarily being budgeted or decided from IT, especially with Oracle, Salesforce, and the companies that I'm working for now. You're not your first process or your first step is not really stepping into IT and trying to identify your major stakeholders there, but it's more within the business as well, right? So if it's Salesforce, it's in sales departments with ERP solutions. It was more finance and planning departments. You're trying to first find people there who are bought into the idea of that new software that you're selling. But at some point, you will need to convince IT as well because they will have to double check with them. And I think that is a difference, right? The complexity, the number of people, the number of stakeholders, departments, and also knowing when and how you will face and you will win. It's not always a battle, right? Sometimes it brings a lot of opportunities for IT as well, especially with SaaS to make their life easier. So it's knowing that and having a plan in place.
Absolutely. Yeah. I think I can also speak from my own experience, having worked with enterprise companies. I
Yeah.
could see, how do you communicate with internal teams, and especially like for complex deals, right, with IT and other supporting teams. So yeah, and I know you've worked with like big companies like Oracle or Slack, for instance, and I just want to understand, how do you manage these longer sales cycles for enterprise accounts?
So it probably is a very simple answer, and as always, it needs a very long explanation and its structure. And to find structure to let's say have a structure in place that is helpful to reduce the complexity or to at least know where you are in the process and how to structure your next steps. It can be um, tools that help you, right, to set reminders and to be on top of the tasks that need to happen, the follow-ups, the reminders internally, but also externally. It's usually with enterprise sales, it's a lot to keep in mind, and their tools can be quite helpful, but not every tool, especially with bigger companies. Sometimes you have a large amount of tools that you can use, that you can benefit from, but not every tool is helpful. So you need to, and this is very individual, within your company that you're working for, identify what tools are there, which are helpful for yourself, for your work, and then obviously set them up in a way so they're helpful to keep keep the whole complexity in front of you and not missing out any important steps. And on the other hand, there is quite many of them. If MedPick is one of them, there is Bond, there is different methodologies that help you to just have, let's say, and with IKEA, you would probably say the lists, the different steps that you need to follow, right? So you have like a guidance on how to, what's the English word for it? The the list that name everything that needs to go in a drawer in a cupboard, for example, or something. Like the pick list or like
Uh-huh.
the item list,
The wish
right?
list.
So
Okay.
this is
I don't know if it's
yeah.
this right word.
You know, at least you know what I mean. It's like
Hmm.
the list that says what goes
Right. Right.
into that furniture, and this is the same with methodologies, right? And there's different ideas on how to tackle best the complexity
Hmm.
of SaaS sales. So it is kind of like a list that helps
Hmm.
you to really go through everything and yeah, kind of do like a checklist and
Hmm.
know this is what should ideally be happening next. But with all the methodologies, I also learned, at least for myself, that methodologies help you to kind of overcome a few parts of the whole process. But it's not like you can use one methodology for all of your accounts, for all of your processes, for what you're selling. So they're a good idea on being creative, how to overcome a few challenges to come along the way. But at the end of the day, it's it's a very, and this is what makes sales probably a very complex and not really easy job to do, but it needs a little bit of um, um, yeah, in German we would say Fingerspitzengefühl,
Hmm.
to really know what is needed at this moment and what person um, do you need to contact next, or how to go about the certain challenges that come your way.
Absolutely. I think when you pointed out the methodologies, I think it also really varies also with respect to the industry, right? So you cannot apply the
Yeah.
same methodology to all the industries. It has to be non-generic for sure. Um,
Mm-hmm.
and I would like to also understand from you, how do you build trust? Because any business
Yeah.
requires trust, and for enterprise
Yeah.
sales, how do you do it?
Yeah, I think trust is especially selling into new accounts. It is a very crucial thing that you need to build up on right from the beginning, and kind of be very yeah, detailed about it as well, right? To win the people with the right mindset. So I think there's three things that I want to point out, and how do I build trust with new customers. And the one is, you will be speaking to a person. This is another person at the end of on the other side of the Zoom call, of the Teams call. It is always you're interacting with people, even though you might be working for a bigger company and they are working for a larger enterprise. It's still, you're talking to another human being. So you want to at least be perceived as somebody who cares about that person, who cares about that company, and who actually knows what they're dealing with on a daily basis. And how do you do that? Well, you usually um, or by at least showing up as somebody who cares, you will do your homework right. So you know, where is the company currently, what are they going through, potentially what is that a department that he's working at, and going through, know about pains that they might face, and have assumptions ready that you can bring into the conversation, to being perceived as somebody who really who cares, and who wants to improve the situation that that person is currently in.
Mhm.
And the third thing is to not, and I think that's the biggest differentiator to say how sales was probably practiced 20 years ago to how it's practiced today, is don't pitch your product, but provide value to that person, right? So you're coming into a conversation, you want to show up as first of all, you want to have your homework done, you want to have a human conversation, and then you want to already, with those assumptions, you also assume of having a value ready for that person of why that person should also, listen to you, why they should even bother of inviting more people into this conversation, why this is interesting, kind of create a little bit of they miss out on something if they don't be talking to you. So this is how you usually, if you have these three things ready with an, and we're speaking about, right, one person that you're trying to contact, that you're trying to build a sales cycle with. Once you are able to do that, then you have not just one person, but then the vision is built, what and why it's important of speaking to you, and then you can base from that. Then you would follow up doing this with obviously more people coming into the conversation, and you're trying to repetitively do that over and over again.
Mhm. Absolutely. And I think one thing I could point out is that businesses have become very smart. So which means that the stakeholders that you discuss or talk with have also become much more smarter. So they already know
Yeah.
that, you're a salesperson. So it's more about the value proposition that you rightly pointed out that has to, come in front rather than being super salesy and, directly
Yeah.
start with the pitch. So yeah, I would definitely agree on this aspect for sure. Um, Also, I want to understand how do you seek and identify, let's just say, the right decision makers to make sure to find the right deal.
Yeah. Um, I think it also goes a lot together with research. And the main tool that I use for that will be Sales Navigator. I think this is not, well, by now, probably not only in Germany and Europe, but it's a great tool to identify at least, and again, this can be assumptions at the beginning, but knowing what is the C level in that company that I'm speaking to, and who are decision maker, who are VPs, directors, so you can then, once you have a connection with somebody from that company, from that account, you can then validate if those are the people that you need to speak to, right? If it's C-level directors, head offs, and you can just have the names ready, and then if they don't come up in a conversation or they being proposed by that person that you're speaking to, anyways, then you can double check with them together if they need to be involved for a next step, for to make a proper decision. So definitely LinkedIn or Sales Navigator is a good tool for that. The other thing that is also, and I think that comes with bigger corporations or bigger software companies, the chance of having a exact relationship with somebody from that company is also very valuable, and can be an accelerator in certain accounts, right? When you're and also through LinkedIn, you can identify if so for that, or to be able to do that, you first of all have to be connected with all of your own C levels on LinkedIn. So you have them in your network, and then you can, once you go through new accounts, other accounts, you can then double check if somebody from them is already connected to somebody from the C level or any other level. So you can just build up on a relationship that they already have, and you can use or not, but it's at least you then have another point for orientation where you could potentially involve them,
Mhm.
and you have in the back of your head, you have in mind that that person is connected to somebody in your network. So this is also a great tool. And then maybe in addition to how you can engage with decision makers in a complex organization, is kind of create like a value stakeholder map. So once you have your first conversations and they go well, and then you can also then on top of that create like values that might be even more important for higher people in the organization, right? So okay, this is what has worked on an operating level. So now on a strategic level, this might be possible or might be valuable to people from a let's say other view from top down and bottom up. So this is something that you can prepare on the side, and that helps you then to at least first of all know who would be important in that part of the sales process, and second of all, what else could you potentially use in when it's needed, right? Not everything needs to be also kind of um, you don't have to use all of the things that you have, but having them in mind and knowing when it's a good time to use them, that's always. And it goes back to again what I mentioned earlier, the Fingerspitzengefühl
Hmm.
of when to use all of the things that you have in your tool set.
Interesting, very interesting.
Yeah,
Um, I think one thing that really I found it personally fascinating is also the line of trust. Like as you rightly pointed, connecting with your own C-level executives and building that sort of, that trust level. Uh, I think that's a good point for sure. If you want to connect with the C-level executives from the client side, interesting. And what is your take on storytelling? Because I know for salespeople, they have to be a little bit more, I
yeah.
wouldn't say manipulative, but having that sort of a creative mentality to engage with prospects or clients. So, what's your take on that?
Absolutely. Hey, thanks for pointing it out already in your question of saying that storytelling in sales sometimes has this already like negative touch to it, that it's manipulative, or it makes people think or assume something that isn't real. But I mean, this can be used to that extent as well. I'm not going to deny that. It can be used in that way, but just as we speak, like when we go back to the podcast, and I earlier tried to give you the example of what is a methodology, and I think that's for somebody who's outside of sales, SaaS enterprise sales might not know that methodologies or what these are and how they use. I tried to give you this example of the IKEA pick list, right? So then it's more tangible, and it makes you can relate quicker to it. So it and just by providing that example, it is this is where it's probably most commonly used storytelling. It's we spoke about enterprise as you need to involve more people, you need to involve more stakeholders, more departments to make a decision on a new software, for example. But if you then to bring everybody to the same level of understanding, then you can use storytelling to kind of give examples that they can relate to, and then they have a better feeling of kind of approving to it or buying into and actually knowing that they are being heard as well, right? So it's this making things a bit more tangible for people, or reducing complexity by giving an example, telling a story, wrapping it around the story, that then helps them to be more involved and keep them more engaged with everything. And obviously, sometimes you don't, well, sometimes when you're really already into your status quo, a certain way of operating a process, you think in that way, and you forget that this is actually right a struggle, or this is something that could be improved.
Mhm.
So, and by also helping those people to really attach it to a story and making like um, explaining what a different scenario could look like, you then keep that person or that those departments even thinking of what is actually possible, because they totally forgot of what that this is actually, oh yeah, we could actually do that differently, and that would help to reduce us a lot of the time. So it brings it keeps you engaged as a listener, and it keeps you it helps you to relate to a certain topic, or even start imagining things once you wrap it around the story. And it just it and obviously it makes a whole conversation more fun to
Mhm.
be part of that conversation. You want to kind of think in that way and not in words like Excel sheets and complexity and these things. It kind of takes away the importance of it and makes it, yeah, I guess I've used the word tangible a lot, but I think
Mhm.
it's a good way of describing the necessity of storytelling
Right.
in a sales cycle.
Interesting. And
Yeah.
also, what do you think are like some of the, let's say, common mistakes that you see in enterprise SaaS sales? And how do you avoid them? Like, have you had some experiences before?
Yeah, I think the perception of you as a salesperson is quite important in from the beginning. You don't want to be somebody who is just because at the end of the day, what we're trying to do, we're trying to chase the deals that we can win, right? And you can be just somebody who is just following requests. There is a potential customer, and you are doing everything that they want. So at the end of the day, um, it's you get the signature. But I think right from the beginning, it's important that the customer also understands that this is both both parties here to set up an environment where both parties can win. It's me by obviously trying to and you don't always necessarily have to deny it. Obviously, you're a salesperson, you're trying to get a certain bonus in or something, but what is important is for that customer to understand that you bring value to each conversation, to each, right? At the beginning, it might be value for that person. Then once you progress in a sales cycle, it is value for not just that person, but for a whole department and for a whole unit of a company, right? So it's always been perceived as somebody who is providing value right from the beginning to avoid this process of, hey, you need to, I need this from you, you need to do it, otherwise you're not, we're not, you want to avoid that. You want to avoid of being just somebody who's chasing the next step and being perceived as somebody who's really adding value to this whole conversation and putting it away from from just chasing things.
Mhm.
And I think also, RFP management is what I would call it, is also a very common mistake that I used to do at the beginning. If you need to know how RFPs are like the idea and obviously the process behind RFPs and when are you added to this conversation, right? So RFPs are usually 70 pages long. You need to read through, especially as the one submitting an answer to it. You need to there's a lot of work involved, right? You need to read through everything. You need to prepare an answer with a lot of stakeholders internally because you don't know all the legal stuff that your companies are providing. You don't know all the technical aspects of it. So by knowing how is this RFP, or by at least looking at the RFP and being completely honest to yourself, do you really have a chance to win this by reducing the amount of work you put in? Um, and if you got the RFP very late, but if you know this RFP, you kind of you do have a real, let's say, chance to because you were evaluated against this RFP before the RFP was even released. You had longer conversation with that customer. So it's it's kind of knowing when to invest your time wisely into an RFP or not, and this kind of that helps you to prioritize your work overall with those accounts and with these RFPs because it's always again we all have what we all don't have, and the higher you go within the organization, the truer this is probably is time. You want to invest your time most successfully, and by just chasing RFPs is a big time waster that you need to be very honest to yourself if there's a chance to win it.
Got it. Awesome. And last but not the least, how would you like shortly summarize the success factors
Yeah.
and also some learning outcomes by winning an enterprise SaaS deal?
Um, yeah, it's a lot of prioritization. So it's depending on the number of accounts, the number of install base, new accounts. You have to make sure you prioritize the right way. Accounts, prospects, everything that you need to prioritize to, and then put a certain structure in place and be consistent with that structure, right? And that will help you to kind of, especially the consistency and within that prioritization will help you to then, and obviously ARR, ACV, whatever the number is that you're trying to get towards your target. But you have to also break the big targets down to smaller units, right? So if you're if your target is around whatever 1 million, then you want to break it down. What KPIs can you provide on a weekly, daily, monthly basis? So like into conversations, into great conversations, into developments like that help you to um, pri- to set up a plan that you can follow on a daily, weekly, monthly basis, so you know you're doing the right thing. Especially with the complexity of large enterprise deals, it's important to have also for your mind these little successes that come along the process on a daily basis. So again, it comes back to structure, and you need to make sure that you're following the right path to hit the number at the end of the day.
Interesting. I think when you pointed about the small successes during the entire cycle process, I mean, I could imagine, let's just say from your end, how it's not. I mean, it's not easy, but just how
Yeah.
much time and effort it takes to finally get that deal closed. So yeah, that's it's a very interesting point that you just shared. And yeah, anyways, Alex, thank you so much for this wonderful exchange. I had a great time talking to you about this enterprise SaaS deal, as I say, a topic around this area. And yeah, thank you so much.
No, thank you, Gopi. It was very much fun to be speaking about it. I hope this will increase your fan base by a little bit, and yeah, I hope. Yeah, good luck with everybody and whoever was listening into this. Happy to follow up with everybody if with anybody if there's any questions on what I've mentioned.
Yep,
Yeah.
absolutely. Thank you so much, I would say.
Thank you, Gopi.